to sum it up, it's messed up. It's just messed up. So we have two funding sources, essentially. One that we refer to as local funding is generally by statute. Well, it's all by statute, but so local funding is what the district defender receives, right? And so we have a district defender in every judicial district, and their office receives funds from various sources. The primary source is the court cost. So the district defender receives $45. Here's where it gets kind of screwy. They receive $45 for every case they lose. Yeah, exactly. So if we lose, if there is a conviction, if there is in that after trial, if there's a conviction or a plea or a nolo contendere, which means essentially you're giving up. You're saying, okay, look, I'm not saying I did it, but okay, I'll take the plea. That's what nolo contendere is. I'm not going to contest it. So when we lose, and I say we because I was a district defender, we get $45, which is warped. It's perverted, and it causes a problem between the lawyers and their clients, because the folks we deal with are there's this image of our client as being uneducated, not very bright. And I'm sorry, many of them are rather sophisticated, and many of them are extremely intelligent, and so they know, and they talk, and they know that. And I've had them come and say, wait, so if you lose, you get $45. I mean, I've had them actually say that to me. And so, and I had to explain, look, okay, but $45, I don't get it. It goes to the office, I don't get it. It's not really, and it doesn't make any difference either way. It's just not going to make a difference on what I do, how I take the case. Trust me, the $45 doesn't matter. But there's that perception that we only get paid when we lose. That's messed up. And it's also subject to all sorts of vagaries that the district defender has no control over. So when I was district defender in Calcasieu, we had...
So before you go on,
sure.
What could possibly be the rationale for that?
What was it? Okay, so that actually predates the board. That's from a long time ago. That is actually how they were funded years ago. And the idea was most of the money comes off of traffic tickets. So it's not even cases we have anything to do with, which is even screwier. It's like even more removed. So the rationale was court costs. They're guilty. Therefore, they should pay their way. Well, okay, that's messed up. That's a user pay system, which is just screwy from the get-go. So then, so I had, most of my money came from local fees and fines, and especially traffic tickets. So one year, my traffic tickets were at a 10-year low. And I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that there was a mayor's race, and the police were not writing tickets, and the sheriff's office laid off on the tickets. I'm sure there was nothing to do with each other. But it's amazing what kind of things tie into your local income. And at the time, it was about 66% of our local funding came from these local tickets. And so if there was a spat between the DA and the sheriff stopped writing tickets, I get hurt. If there is a flood, law enforcement rightfully has higher priorities than writing tickets for me. There are things that they need to do to protect the public. So again, local district loses out money. Baton Rouge is down $2 million annually from 4 years ago. And it started with the floods, and it has gone on ever since. And so they've had real problems the last couple of years. So there are all these things going on that the public defender has no control over, and yet it can cause your district to tailspin and go into restriction of services. And so there is money that the legislature apportions to the board, and the board it supplements their funding with money, but it's about 41% of their funding now. So if you're in trouble, there's only not much I can do for you. We can help kind of get you up a little bit, but most of your money's coming locally. And so why there's this chronic underfunding of the districts, because the local funding is unreliable, it's insufficient, and we're just woefully underfunded, and have been. To give you an idea of what funding looks like, we don't know what the DAs receive, but we do know they spend about $150 million a year. We spend about 66. Yet we have 80% of the caseload. We defend 80% of the caseload. And so you would think, if we had 75% of their funding, wouldn't that be good? Well, that'd be about, that'd be up around well over $90,000. You don't have the resources, so you have to pick and choose what you're going to really throw your money and your assets behind. So this is where things can really go south on you. We had a case, and it was a kid was arrested for felon in possession of a firearm. Now, felon in possession of a firearm is one of those cases where it's very, very cut and dry. It's very hard to defend because you had a gun or you didn't. You have a felony or you don't. And it's not any felony. It's generally, crimes of violence, drug charges, and a few others like burglary. And so if it's, as you might imagine, it's more of a safety issue. So if you have a theft, that's generally not a public safety issue. You can still own a gun. On the other hand, if you're convicted of manslaughter and they catch you with a gun, it's, back then it was 10 to 15. So you're just going away. There's no probation. You're just going away for 10 years. It's a really tough draconian law. So here's this kid, got pulled over. He tells the police officer, "I have a gun in my car. I have a gun in the car." And so the officer says, "Step out." He went, sure enough, there's a firearm in the car. He runs the client's record, and he's got a felony for manslaughter. What do you do? I mean, here's a kid. He told the officer, "It's my gun," and he has a felony conviction in his past. Not much to work with there. And so one of my lawyers, and she was a young lawyer, came in, tears in her eyes, and said, I can't live with this. This kid he's just not. You need to meet him. He's not what you think. And he was about 19 years old, sweet kid. I mean, he really was. Like, he had apple cheeks. He looked like he just walked out of some high school. And so I said, "Okay, look." And I talked to him for a while. And so here's where you've got a problem. When you look at a case like this, what kind of resources are you going to put into it? I mean, because it costs money. I mean, are you going to pay $5,000 for an investigator to go look into this case? Or are you going to save that for a murder? The facts are so stark that how do you defend this? Well, I spoke to him, and he had a manslaughter conviction in Texas. So I told the lawyer, I said, "Look, you need to investigate what the facts are. What happened. At least get somebody to get that police report." Well, we got the police report. Turns out Texas, has a broader definition for manslaughter. What had actually happened is his friend had come home with a gun, an antique gun, and started going click, click, click. And my client said, "Stop." And he goes, "No, really, it's an antique gun. It's busted. Go ahead." He hands it, one shot, killed his best friend. And so what happened was he was convicted of manslaughter. In Louisiana, that would have been involuntary manslaughter. Well, that doesn't fall under felon in possession of a firearm. So we had taken the time and invested the assets and really money, and that's what it boils down to, money, to go investigate this case and find out what happened. You know, I guarantee you, that is not done, and especially with felon in possession of a firearm, I guarantee you that's not done in every case. It's just, it's too expensive, and it's too easy it's too hard to beat. It's, you know, the idea of beating it, that was a unique case. And so, when you're not funded properly, you're placed in this really bad situation where you have to figure out, okay, which of my clients, and this is the line defender now, and I'm guilty of the same thing. I had to do the same thing. Okay, which of my clients is the one I'm going to my boss and saying, I need an expert, I need an investigator, I need a mitigation expert, because I really don't, I think at sentencing, this guy is the guy that we need to talk about who should not be sentenced to the maximum sentence. I need blood spatter expert, I need, you know, whatever it is. You know, you as a line defender, you have to go to your boss and ask. And if you ask for something in every case, your boss is going to go, okay, whiny baby, we're not dealing with this. I am not made of money. I have X number. I have 10 other lawyers in my office. You can't have it all. And so you are stuck in that situation where you've got to make the choice. You know,